Hey everyone, welcome to Man Cave Insider. I'm Dennis. Thank you so much for joining me. If you like what you see, make sure you subscribe to our channel so you can see past and future videos. We are here in my man cave, and this room is filled with things that I've collected my entire life, and these are the stories behind them. And today, we're going to be taking a look at the complete adventures of young Indiana Jones. This year marks the 40th anniversary of the film Raiders of the Lost Ark, which introduced the world to one of cinema's greatest heroes, Indiana Jones, portrayed by Harrison Ford. The film was directed by Steven Spielberg and written by George Lucas. To date, Indiana Jones has appeared in 4 films, with a 5th film going into production later this year. During filming of Raiders of the Lost Ark and its sequel, 1984's Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Steven Spielberg and Harrison Ford would constantly ask George Lucas about Indiana Jones's past, about his childhood, and about his family. And Lucas decided to delve into Indy's past in the 3rd film, 1989's Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. The opening segment of the film featured Indiana Jones at age 13, portrayed by River Phoenix, who had recently portrayed Ford's son in the film The Mosquito Coast. The film also featured Sean Connery as Indy's father, Professor Henry Jones. This opening segment to the film went off so well that George Lucas decided to create a television series focusing on Indiana Jones's childhood, titled The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. The series would feature Indy's adventures from the ages of 8 to 21, and to do this, he hired 2 actors to portray Indiana Jones. Corey Carrier portrayed Indy from the ages of 8 to 10, and Sean Patrick Flannery portrayed Indy from the ages of 16 to 21. The original plan was to go back and forth between the 2 actors. However, the series wound up focusing more on Flannery's teenage Indiana Jones during the World War I years. For each episode, actor George Hall portrayed a modern-day Indiana Jones in his 90s, reflecting on events of his past. Lucas wanted the show to have an educational quality to it, where Indiana Jones would interact with the more prominent events and figures of the early 20th century. Some of the figures that Indy interacted with included Lawrence of Arabia, Theodore Roosevelt, Thomas Edison, Pancho Villa, Charles de Gaulle, Albert Schweitzer, Pablo Picasso, the Red Baron, Al Capone, George Gershwin, and Sigmund Freud, among others. Much like the film, the series took place in many different locations, such as Mexico, China, India, Russia, Africa, and all throughout Europe, and the series was shot in over 25 countries. Many prominent actors made early appearances in the Chronicles of Young Indiana Jones, such as Catherine Zeta-Jones, Elizabeth Hurley, Anne Heche, Jeffrey Wright, and future James Bond Daniel Craig. The series also had appearances by veteran actors such as Christopher Lee, Vanessa Redgrave, and Max von Sydow. In putting the series together, Lucas created an extensive timeline of Indiana Jones's life from his birth in 1899 to the start of the films in the mid-30s. Some of the writers of the series included Shawshank Redemption director Frank Darabont, Jonathan Hales, who co-wrote Star Wars Episode II Attack of the Clones, Jonathan Hensley, who wrote Armageddon and The Punisher, and Princess Leia herself, Carrie Fisher, even co-wrote one of the episodes. The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles debuted on ABC on March 4th, 1992, and ran till July of 1993. Harrison Ford happily returned to the role to bookend the episode titled The Mystery of the Blues, which had Indy attending college in Chicago and working at a jazz club where he befriends jazz legend Sidney Bechet. He then gets involved in solving a murder involving a young Al Capone, along with his college roommate Elliot Ness and a newspaper reporter named Ernest Hemingway. After the series was canceled, the Family Channel produced 4 more feature-length Young Indy films from 1994 to 1996. Originally, Lucas had outlined 70 episodes but only filmed 32. Future episodes would have seen Indy interacting with several characters featured and talked about in the films, such as Abner Ravenwood, father of Marion Ravenwood, and a young archaeologist named Renee Belloc, who is Indy's rival in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Lucas decided to re-edit the series into 22 feature-length episodes and retitled it The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones. He removed all of the segments with Old Indy and shot several scenes to link one episode to the other. 12 of these films were released on VHS in 1999, and each episode had an introduction by George Lucas. The Complete Adventures of Young Indiana Jones was released on DVD in 2007 and 2008 in 3 different volumes. We have Volume 1, The Early Years, Volume 2, The War Years, and Volume 3, The Years of Change. To prepare for the DVD release, Lucasfilm shot 94 documentaries about the people and the events that Indy interacts with throughout the series. For example, Chapter 16, Tales of Innocence, has Indy and Ernest Hemingway fighting over the affections of a woman, and then Indy joins the French Foreign Legion. This episode features documentaries on Hemingway, Edith Wharton, Lowell Thomas, and the French Foreign Legion. One of the things that I really like about the Adventures of Young Indiana Jones is that there's so many different types of films. There's drama, action, comedy, mystery, romance, and they're shot in many different locations throughout the world. For example, the episode titled The Scandal of 1920 has Indy in New York working backstage at a Broadway show while falling in love with 3 women at the same time. The 4th Indiana Jones film, The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, has a scene with Indy talking to Mutt Williams about when he was a teenager and he ran with Pancho Villa. And this is featured in Chapter 6, Spring Break Adventure. George Lucas has always stated that working on Young Indiana Jones was one of the happiest times in his career, and it revitalized his love of filmmaking. Lucas was so happy with the results of these films that he kept producer Rick McCallum and many of the department heads when he returned to the director's chair in 1999 with the Star Wars prequel trilogy with Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones often gets overlooked because many people tend to focus on just the films. But this is a very important part in the development of this characters that was seen in the movies featuring Harrison Ford. Now what I have here is The Complete Adventures of Young Indiana Jones, which was released on DVD in 3 volumes. So let's go ahead and let's take a closer look at the adventures of Young Indiana Jones. Now this is The Complete Adventures of Young Indiana Jones, which was released on DVD in 3 volumes. Volume 1, The Early Years, is on 12 discs. Volume 2, The War Years, is on 9 discs. And Volume 3, The Years of Change, is on 10 discs. 31 discs total. Now, Volume 1 features all of the films with Corey Carrier as Indy from ages 8 to 10, and 2 films featuring Sean Patrick Flannery as Indy in his teens. This also features an episode that has Elizabeth Hurley in one of her first acting roles. And it lists the episodes and all of their special features. And underneath the discs is artwork about Indy's life and his adventures, just as if it was in a journal. And some episodes have so many bonus features that there is an extra disc just to accommodate the historical documentaries. None of these documentaries feature Indiana Jones, but rather the people and the events that he interacts with. Volume 2, The War Years, focuses on when Indy joins the Belgian army and his adventures throughout World War I. One of the episodes is called Daredevils of the Desert and features Catherine Zeta-Jones and Daniel Craig many years before he played James Bond. Some of my favorite episodes are The Phantom Train of Doom, Attack of the Hawkmen, which features Indy meeting up with the Red Baron, Adventures of the Secret Service, and Daredevils of the Desert, which features Catherine Zeta-Jones, Daniel Craig, and also has Indy meeting up with his friend Lawrence of Arabia. In Volume 3, The Years of Change focuses on Indy's life as World War I is coming to an end, and he goes back to the States to attend college, and he gets involved in filmmaking, gets involved in learning about jazz, gets involved in Broadway, and some of these films have a more lighter tone to it. And the episode on disc 6 is The Mystery of the Blues, which features Harrison Ford returning to the character to bookend that episode. And then each volume contains a bonus disc with an interactive timeline that can be used on any DVD-ROMs. So that is it for our look at the complete adventures of young Indiana Jones from executive producer George Lucas. Thank you for watching. We hope you subscribe to our channel, and we look forward to seeing you next time.